We are back with budget conversations today with internal audit. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to just take a moment and recognize that we have Councilman Bill Pridemore, who is the chair of the budget process for Metro Council with us today. I'm going to turn this to Talia, and then she's going to turn it back to you. So thank you for being here.
Good afternoon. Internal Audit is Metro's independent audit agency. They have a current year budget of $1.2 million and 10 budgeted FTEs. They have a FY17 budget improvement request for $149,500 and 1 FTE. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Swan.
Well, thank you, Mary, and Boss Talia, and ex-boss Rich.
Tell them what that
Quite a
means.
crew, isn't
Tell them what that means. Remember the audit committee.
The finance director has always been on the appointed position on the audit committee, so one of my 6 bosses. So
I like that. That's awesome.
Mayor, I would just like to start off just a reminder that in 2006, the voters voted for an independent audit function with over 123,000 of your fellow citizens voting yes for that amendment with an 83% carry rate for that proposition. So the question really becomes is what is the right balance to provide audit assurance as the independent auditor office? We believe our budget at $1.2 million, when we benchmark against other government entities that do have an independent audit function or an internal audit function, some type of assurance function, we fall short of the resources that are being provided there.
Do you compare apples to apples as far as?
Well, it's very hard to get sometimes, most of them are pretty close, but sometimes when you see a really big budget, there could be their external auditor fee could be thrown in there, so you go and call every single person and find out what's in and out, but most of the time I have checked, and it's usually not included.
And they're the same kind of scope as far as population and?
Well, I'm looking more on complexity of dollars budget total. When you combine our business enterprise and our government spending, we're about the 29th largest local government between counties and cities.
Got it.
And if you throw component units in there, which is another question, well, you're adding another $1.5 billion on top of that, which puts us even higher up in that list.
Right.
And so from that perspective, most of these cities too also are our city or county or school board, so they're very focused, where we have so many 90-plus entities that we look at that makes it more complex and makes it where we can be less focused, and any kind of right sizing of audit assurance function says, the more focused you can be, the less people you can have.
Right.
When you have more diversity and breadth of services, you can't stay focused, so you got to have more coverage if you really want to do the job adequately. The question is, what is the right size? The right size is whatever the citizens want it to be, and we represent the citizens, and it's, if you're in a private industry, it's whatever the size they think they have is going to be necessary, and so we're trying to find that right balance. And what I believe that we could do, provide more coverage with our improvements that we've had, modest improvements of trying to get our consulting management budget to allow us to bring in some additional subject matter experts, because we have so many different functions.
Is that typical? Do you usually bring in subject matter experts when you're doing different audits?
We do some.
Okay.
We're still working on that, and then we've wholesale some audits out to provide additional resources, to provide additional coverage on more and more complex areas. We wholesale out the schools audit, the state trial courts. We brought in an expert on the radio, 800 megahertz, to help supplement. We're trying different ways to get that accomplished.
So what's your current consulting budget?
Our consult is $75,000.
So this would double it?
This would double it. Okay. We were at one time, I can't say what we used to be, but we're trying to bring that back up to $150,000 to $200,000 over several years. And that's being that it's a lot better to have the funds available to get the subject matter experts and provide additional coverage through a co-sourcing arrangement than to bring on additional FTEs, because we can bring in more specific expertise to address the different issues that need to be, the risk that we're facing on a day-to-day basis.
So the $75,000 that you're asking for would be allocated to different audits, different people, different subject matter experts. You're not bringing in just one FTE.
An average total outsource audit is about $50,000. So when you add 150, you could do maybe 2 to 3. Some are more expensive, some are a little less. But we also try to bring in experts there's maybe usually it's around $8,000 to $10,000, we can bring a subject matter expert to help consult the audit team that's doing our internal staff. That's becomes a big help for us too. And so it's a way to try to leverage those dollars and carry them a little bit farther along.
Right, gotcha.
So that's what we're doing. And then we also asked as a second priority was to restore an administrative assistant position that was cut in the past. And all of this is because the idea is for us to provide assurance services to the level that I believe we need to do, we need to have more direct hours, the auditors out looking at transactions, reviewing processes, looking for ways to improve the metro government and how we service our citizens. And right now that work is being distributed between all the staff, which brings some benefits. They get to see how things work on a day-to-day basis, but at the same time they're not doing what they're hired to do, to be auditors and providing assurance services. So we believe that restoring that position will help give us more coverage and more direct hours spent on providing improvements. Our office last year identified over 800 recommendations for improving the government on a day-to-day basis. Some are in the past, some of those improvements are major ones. Most of them are small incremental improvements. But every time I think when you look back over time, you say those are things that when implemented, have made the government a better place.
And tell me about once you've gone and you've made these 800 recommendations, what's your schedule to go back and actually see implementation?
Well, because of our lower resources, we have decided not to do follow-up type audits.
Okay.
We do follow-ups when we come back around again, and which takes...
I think I just saw an audit that had some follow-ups from
right, that's what
that hadn't been implemented.
The clerk and master, right.
Correct, yes.
And then what we have there is there's about... what we do is have every director voluntarily provide information once a year on what the status is, and then when we do an audit again, we'll go back, and then we do some follow-up audits depending on the risk and levels. So.
Got it.
But like in all audits, you do have an opportunity to have management comment on the findings.
Yes.
And indicate whether they agree, disagree, or it's kind of
when they plan.
and when they plan to implement it. Yeah. So
yeah.
there's a little bit of checks and balance there, but
Right, but then there's
But what we do is we follow back up once a year, for the ones that they agree to. We don't, if they obviously they didn't agree, and also the audit committee reviews all the reports, and so that's where if they think that someone's accepting a risk that's too great for the metro government, that's where their responsibility to try to get the parties together and say, is there something we can do better to mitigate this
for
risk?
the folks at home, why don't you say who's on that audit committee so that they know who's actually overseeing
On the
that?
audit committee today, we have Talia Lomax O'Neill.
So you've got finance.
Finance. We also have the Vice Mayor Briley by position, and then we have two elected positions upon the council, which is Councilman Cooper and Councilman Mendez, Councilman at large, and then we have one appointed by the Chamber of Commerce, Brack Reed, that's not confirmed by anybody, but whoever they decide, and also the Nashville chapter of the Society of CPAs, which is Bob Brannon, who's our chairman, who apologizes that his schedule was too busy to make it today, but he was planning to be here, but found himself talking.
Okay.
And so that's
Well,
what
I think that's helpful to know just who the audit committee is and who's watching.
Yeah. And then we had some minor software inflationary and improvements that we asked for.
Talia, anything?
I understand all your requests.
Yeah.
can I ask you a non-budgetary question?
Yes, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Since you have, whether you willingly or not, have created a little bit of a controversy over some proposed legislation
Yes, sir.
that changes the scope that is perceived by some to change the powers or scope, and I just generally speaking, I'm not in favor of anything that that increases audit scope. I don't know how you could be against it. The public sort of has an outright to know, and I don't see what the issue is. And I know the councilman has deferred it and is talking to different parties about it, and just was trying to, while I had you here, just ask you. So it'll help me because they keep calling me wanting getting in the middle of it, and I don't think it's appropriate for us to be in the middle of it. It's an independent audit function, and it's their decision to make, but I thought it'd be an opportunity just to sort of explain
talk about it.
why you think it's sort of important from your role as the independent auditor for the city.
Well, when it comes to when we're doing our audit planning and risk, and again, right sizing, you have to know the size of the entity that you're auditing. And so basically, I think we have pretty clarity on every area, but when you start getting to the component units. And in the charter, there's obviously, well, I'll throw out the one area that's always questionable is the board of electric power board, in the sense that there's a charter that the metro government will not interfere with the day-to-day business of that area. And so the question is, does an audit interfere? In the past, you're saying when we had an opinion from the state attorney's office was that an audit doesn't interfere since it's purely advisory. And so if it's purely advisory, it doesn't interfere with the day-to-day business. You can choose, like we said, they can choose to accept or reject any audit recommendation and issue. I look at it as trying to define what that scope is. It's basically just trying to put in code what's in the audit committee's bylaws, and has been since we first started, of what the metropolitan government is. And what we believe the metropolitan government is every entity that existed in the city of Nashville, every entity that was in Davidson County when the metropolitan government joined together, plus any entity that was been created since that time. And so that's a very broad definition, which would include all those areas. I look at it also as council members, as you being a former council member, you have the responsibility to appoint qualified board members for all these agencies. And
Now, the council actually elects.
now you appoint, they elect.
Right,
Excuse me.
making sure
So I apologize. Make sure I get it right, excuse me.
Just thinking of you were.
Right.
Council confirms.
Council, well, the council
Confirms.
actually elects them out of the.
Well, you talk about this.
The audit.
Yeah, but he's talking about the
Board members.
Right.
They're confirming the board members.
Right.
So it also gives, there's still some fiduciary responsibility. If something goes bad in those areas, I think the citizens are going to be looking back, well, who is looking out for it?
Sure.
I don't believe the citizens see a line of demarcation between.
Right, exactly.
That's
so,
right.
And so really the legislation is really to say, at least tell me that here's your limit, because if I'm not going somewhere, and I should be, I could be in trouble for the citizens. And so to me, it's up to the council to decide what is that limit, where should you be and where you should not be. So that's really
So it's really the Electric Power Board, Sports Authority, Airport.
all the component units. And most of those component units we've audited in the past without any questions, but there's been some have kicked back when we do it, and so we're trying to work through those issues. You think 50 years later we'd know what the government is, but we're still trying to find out what it is. And there's some other issues just trying to help clarify access to records to make sure that's in code, that the independent auditor has access to records. And the other one is that by the charter, there is another citizen's perception that we do investigations. We do provide investigation services when there's a fraud, waste, and abuse, and we provide that as a service, but I have no authority to initiate an investigation. And so the code would, at least, and there's been situations where you thought, well, nobody else is going to do it, someone needs to do this. And so that's also part of that legislation.
Okay, thanks.
Does that help?
It does, and I just wanted to say that we've also been joined by another council member. Councilmember Mina Johnson has joined us. Mina, it's nice to see you. Any other questions?
Good, thank you.
I think we're good. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
being here.
Mike.
Really
I
appreciate it.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.